Yahoo! Welcome, my beautiful brothers and sisters, to the Aquarian Eclipse, my platform to become your spiritual server. And this video is about the new moon solar eclipse that we're having tomorrow, which will happen at approximately 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Cancer. And I have spent the past hour to about hour and a half looking up about this eclipse, studying a little bit more about it, and I already kind of knew that this eclipse, I intuitively was feeling that this eclipse was going to be incredibly powerful, a really big transformational period, and a incredible portal that we're stepping into. First of all, it is in Cancer, so this is already a portal in and of itself. But the fact that it's happening at 20 degrees, which is a pretty significant degree, it's just even further cements the fact that this eclipse is going to change the world forever. And all eclipses really do this, but I don't know, there is something interesting about this eclipse, and I don't know if you can feel it, but it's just like we feel that literally the old chapter is ending and the new chapter is beginning. It has that feel to it. As I cut the deck, I pull up the Page of Cups, just cutting the deck. And this is similar to the fact that we are in fact learning empathy. We are learning compassion, because what does Cancer rule? It rules the home, the foundation, families, emotion. It's ruled by the moon. So in many ways it does rule empathy, compassion, generosity, sincerity. And it's interesting because, you know, right now the North Node in Leo is at about 5 degrees, and it will come into Cancer later this year. So we're already kind of like heading towards this energy, and where Spirit and the universe wants us to go towards is learning to have empathy for our fellow brothers and sisters, not only human but in the animal kingdom, the planet at large. This is a very, very powerful time. Also a very powerful time to acknowledge the mother. Like I said, I spent the past hour or two kind of researching this eclipse. Even went back and looked at the full moon in Cancer that we had earlier this year, and even jumped into the future at when the next new moon in Cancer, which is going to be actually also another solar eclipse. And I'll show you guys that here in a bit. But how can I say this? You know, this morning was kind of an interesting interesting morning for me, because it's like today is one of those days where I feel like a spaceman. I feel connected, but I feel not connected. I feel like I'm out there in the ethers, but I feel like I'm here at the same time. And maybe you kind of feel this way too, because Cancer is kind of an interesting energy, because it is representative of the mother, it's representative of our childhood. I think what's happening is that we feel this weird isolation from the world at large, and this new moon solar eclipse is actually going to bring us more in tune with the inner world, with the inner reality, with the inner truth, with the inner magic. The interesting thing about this eclipse also is that it's actually directly opposed Pluto, the planet of birth, of death and rebirth, of destruction, of transformation, transmutation. So it's really interesting how we have the largest energy, which is technically the sun, opposing the smallest energy as far as like its mass, I guess you can say, or the size of it, Pluto. But really, they're two very big energies. They're going to be opposing each other, and the moon's going to be over this spot. And anytime you have a new moon, it's a time of planting seeds. It's the start of a new cycle. It's also kind of an interesting release point. So it's not just the new moon where you plant seeds. You also do this during the full moon, and you also release things during both of these times. So this new moon is simultaneously going to be a time where we begin to plant new seeds, manifestation, and also release kind of the old way, or in many ways uproot what we already have planted. So forgive me. Today's a bit of a spacey day for me. And it's like I said, today's one of my days where I feel like a spaceman. And it's like, when I tap into the energy of a spaceman, it's like there's this incredible wonder, this incredible connection but disconnect from the world, and this incredible connect and disconnect from our heart and the universe at large. Because it's like you're not grounded to really anything besides this spaceship, right? Which is outside of the earth, you know, so you're just kind of floating there. And then the umbilical cord, you know, attaches you to the ship. And in many ways, that's kind of what our body is. If you think of your body as like a spaceship, and when you dream and you go off into the astrals, into the ethers, you have this like silver cord that connects you to your body. And it's kind of like you being an astronaut going off into the ethers and exploring those realms. Because in many ways, I like to think of Cancer as this portal to the divine, to the Holy Land. So literally, the Holy Land is actually Leo, and Cancer is literally like that portal to that space. So, I think what's happening with this new moon is that we are learning on a deeper foundational level what empathy actually is. I think we are also simultaneously learning what intuition is. And I even had the thought earlier this morning that emotions and intuition aren't the same thing. And maybe, you know, maybe this is apparent, maybe I'm late to the party and stuff like that. And it's just like, because when you think about it, emotions, oh, there's an advertisement playing on the TV where the music was going, but it's okay. Emotions, you know, they come and go. They're ruled by the moon, which goes around the chart every 28 to 29 days. So realistically, emotions are like this flow of energy where they come and they go, they ebb and they flow. But sometimes we hold on to emotions. But intuition is this deep inner truth that is rather unchanging. So it's like, and it's funny because the only thing that is constant and the only thing that's unchangeable is change itself. So it's like intuition is like this portal into this deeper divine truth of who we are. And I don't know why, but I feel like this interesting thing where we realize with this eclipse that emotions and intuition are in fact different. But I think what we all are intuiting right now is that we actually can create a world that is conducive for everyone's abundance. We actually can create a world that is in line with everyone's higher purpose. And it seems like a fantasy, right? It seems like something that we can't actually achieve. It seems like something that is fairy tale, Hollywood, far away. But I don't believe that to be the case. Now, that is not to say that we don't have challenges, that we aren't going to have to push through dark nights of the soul, of the collective soul, in order to reach that place. But I think this eclipse is a major turning point for everyone, and of course it's going to be fine-tuned and tailored to you based off of where it is in your chart. But as a collective, this is a major turning point to learning to embrace everybody. Because if you think about it, we are learning, this is happening in Cancer, so we have to think about the other, this is going to affect all of the water signs the most, and also the cardinal signs the most. So, you know, water signs going to obviously affect Scorpio and Pisces. In particular, if you have your degrees, if you have like your sun, moon, or rising between the degrees of like, I would say about 18 to about 22 degrees of Cancer, you're going to feel this most as far as if you're a water sign, or if you have your cardinal, or if you have like your, I would say your sun and a cardinal sign amongst those degrees. You're going to feel this the most. Everyone's obviously going to feel this. Everyone's obviously going to be affected by this. But if you think about it, this is dealing with empathy and family. And actually us seeing, I think this is us actually expanding our boundaries. Because you got to think about it, Jupiter just went direct in Scorpio, which has to do with our boundaries and our level of trust in each other. So, and if you think about it, even though it's loose, we have quite of an interesting transit that's happening. We have a grand Earth trine that's happening with Venus, which has just moved into Virgo, Uranus, which is in Taurus, and Saturn retrograde in Capricorn. So you have a grand Earth trine at the time of this eclipse. Not only of that, but it's a loose water trine, but we have a water trine as well, with the Sun and Moon at 20 degrees of Cancer, Jupiter, which has just recently gone direct at 13 degrees of Scorpio, and Neptune, which is retrograde at 16 degrees of Pisces. So if you really want to think about it, the highest degree of the water trine is the Sun and the Moon, which is kind of where we're aiming for. What's happening is that, we're having to expand our boundaries and trust in Scorpio, and realize that we all have dark and light. We all have a past. We all have skeletons in the closet, but are we willing to trust each other despite the skeletons in the closet? That's actually the lowest number of the water trine, 13 degrees. So you go to 16 degrees of Neptune, which is about spirituality, connecting to source. And it's a Neptune, so everything may not be as it seems. So are we willing to look past boundaries that we have placed on ourselves before emotionally to embrace a new spirituality? But we have to even go higher, because the funny thing about Neptune and Pisces is that it's like a dream. Things aren't as they seem. Are we actually willing to go higher, and where the Sun is right now, which represents our awareness and where we're shining our light on, and the Moon, which represents our emotions and what we're feeling into? Can we take it even to a higher place at 20 degrees of Cancer and learn to accept each other? Learning to empathize with each other. I think it's, people like to, there's this weird perception that's being pushed onto the world via media that the world is fucked, to put it bluntly, right? The world is going to shit. We have trashed the world, the oceans are polluted, the air is polluted. But what I find to be very encouraging and very powerful and very inspirational are the moments where humans can actually come together and actually help each other and uplift each other. And I'm just thinking about, what recently happened in Thailand with the, I think it was like a boys soccer team, right? That got trapped within that cave, and how they all have been rescued now. And it's like, the interesting thing about our world with these stories, with the internet and how information moves now, is that it seems that we are more connected with each other in the larger scope of things, but there's this weird disconnect where we're we needed the internet to connect with each other and be more aware of what's happening in the world, but I feel like it's just a bridge, because we'll evolve to the point where we don't need this. We'll evolve to the point where we're just speaking to each other telepathically, because will have raised our psychic faculties, and it would have matured to a point where we don't need these artifacts anymore. They will actually become ancient and a thing of the past. Think about that. The internet's rather a new thing, but what if the internet's actually a thing of the past, or an ancient system that we used to understand the interconnectedness? Because you think about it, internet, the net, the cosmic net that's within all of us, that connects us with everything else that's outside of us, that appears to be outside of us, right? It's kind of weird when you think about it, but I feel like I said, this new moon solar eclipse is going to be a powerful portal, a transformation where we are actually learning more how to empathize with the larger collective. Now, I took quite a bit of notes on this, and I was like crunching numbers and doing math. Like, I'll show you what I'm talking about, and I'll explain to you in a second what exactly it is. Crunching these numbers and stuff, and then this is what I eventually came up with. So, I want you to think about it like this. We all have a sun sign, we all have a moon sign, a rising, Mercury, Venus, etc. But when you go past all that, we all have 360 degrees, right? But our sun represents a particular angle that we are looking at in this life and that we are becoming aware of. And then it's like we begin to illuminate the entire circumference of this, I don't know if that's even the right word, the entire area of this reality, or this circle, or womb, or even egg that we're trying to break out of. But we represent a particular angle that we're coming in at. That's where the sun is, right? So let's just say that you have your sun at 10 degrees of Leo, right? So your sun, you act, and your personality is based off of the 10th degree of Leo, right? Which means that, it's like you're one who needs to protect their heart. And that's actually how you're going to manifest, because you might be a little, if you have your sun at 10 degrees of Leo, you might be a little bit naive, you might really be kind of a romantic, and you might really want to express from your heart space, but you might be one that might be prone to being hurt because you don't know how to protect your heart, you don't know how to protect your passions, you don't know how to protect that fire energy, so you may be doused, your fire may be doused by other people's doubts, fears, worries. It's just an example. But the 10th degree of Leo's, in the grand scheme of things, it's actually at a different degree. Because if you think about it, Aries represents what? The first 30 degrees. Taurus represents the second 30 degrees. Gemini represents the third 30 degrees, and so on. So I want you to kind of get into the habit and just the knowledge and the awareness that, yes, you might be a sun in a particular sign, but we're all the signs. If you're really hip about it, we're all the signs. Even if you don't have a planet in a particular sign, that doesn't mean that you don't have that energy. Like for me personally, I don't have any energies in Taurus. I don't have any major energies in Taurus. But that does not mean that I don't have Taurus energy. That just means, if anything, it means that I need to learn how to develop that energy, and I have to maybe even put a little bit more work into developing my Taurus energy. And even I have to look at where my second house is and learn how to channel that energy into my Taurus house, and then I can begin to manifest. For me, Taurus is the 6th house. So if I look at my second house, which is Capricorn, which I have quite a few energies in, I can kind of work with those energies and earth bend that element into my 6th house of daily routine, service, and reality. And then I can begin to create my day-to-day reality based off of my levels of self-worth and self-confidence. This is just an example, right? So we're all the signs, even if you don't have, like I said, a planet in a particular sign. So that got me thinking about this particular eclipse. So, like I said, the new moon solar eclipse is at 20 degrees of Cancer. And I wanted to look at, and I'm going to just kind of read it to you, then I'm going to show it to you and even show you the degrees that this eclipse is happening at with the sun and, of course, Pluto, which is actually directly opposing. Then I'm going to show you the full moon that we had. What's the full moon? Oh, not the full moon, but I'm going to show you the lunar event that we had in January, and the next new moon that we have. Yeah, the full moon that we had in January, and then I'm going to show you the new moon that we'll have in Cancer, so I can kind of give you a before, present, and after picture, so you can kind of get this overall sense of what's happening with this new moon. Because, like I said, this is a major portal, So, the sun and moon will be at 20 degrees of Cancer. But if you look at the collective astrology chart, like say if someone was born at the time of the eclipse, at its apex, and then they would have that particular ascendant, second house, third house, fourth house, but they have all the energies. So if you take that into consideration, and I will show you, the sun and moon will be in the collective energy, 22 to about 24 degrees of Leo. Figuratively, right? Which out of 360 degrees, it is related to 142 to about 144 degrees of the whole chart, right? That's where it kind of relates to. Pluto, which will be at 22 degrees to about 24 degrees of Aquarius, and the collective astrological chart will be at 322 degrees to about 324 degrees. Now, I'm going to show you this, so I know this sounds kind of weird, but it's like, it's interesting because, like, all right, let's take, for example, I have my sun in Scorpio at 24 degrees, and it's in the 12th house. So if I have 360 degrees, I wanted to see what was the degree that my sun was at in the collective degrees of my chart. And I looked it up, and it is about 16 to 17 degrees of Pisces, or that energy. I wrote it down, so it was like, hold on, let me go back into my notes. It was at about, in my own chart, my sun in Scorpio is at about 346 degrees of that chart, which correlates to about 16 to 17 degrees of Pisces. That's what I'm getting at here. So it's like a translation. So the new moon solar eclipse at 20 degrees of Cancer kind of translates to the 142nd to about 144th degrees of the collective chart at that time. Now I'm going to show you what this is, because I know that sounds a little weird and stuff. But when I show you what it actually is, and then when I read the Sabian symbol for it, this will begin to make more sense. Like, this will begin to really open up your awareness, and you'll begin to really understand where exactly I'm coming from, right? So let's go ahead and hop on over to the chart. Alright, so as you can see here, this is going to be the new moon solar eclipse that we have in Cancer at 20 degrees, right? So you see this is where everything is at. Now, let's just say that someone is born at this time, and someone will be born at this time. Someone will be born at this time, right? This is occurring around 10:47, p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, it's interesting. The ascendant of the person born at this time is at 27 degrees of Aquarius, and they have their part of fortune actually conjunct their ascendant, which is pretty cool. So this is where, let's just say that 27 degrees of Aquarius is the first degree of this person's chart, right? So if you do 360 degrees, you'll go 27 to 27, right? 27 degrees of Aquarius, you'll go to 27 degrees of Pisces. So it's still technically in the first house. Yes, their second house does begin in Aries, but we're just talking about, 360 degrees here. So if we look at it, the sun and moon are here at 20 degrees of Cancer, right? In the fifth house. So the sun's actually at home here in the fifth house. It actually feels good to be here in the fifth house. So we are actually opening up our hearts in a very profound way. So if you take this into consideration, 27 degrees of Aquarius to about 27 degrees of Pisces, and then the second 30 degrees will be 27 degrees of Pisces to 27 degrees of Aries. And then you go so on and so forth to about, right up here, Which, at this point, it correlates, like I said, if you do the math, to about 142 to 144 degrees. Which, if you look at the overall, say like Aries, which rules the first 30 degrees, Taurus, which rules the second 30 degrees, Leo would represent what? It would represent, let me look at my notes real fast because I did write it down. Leo would represent 120 degrees to about 150 degrees. So if you take this into consideration, the overall chart, and if you think of the degrees as a vibration, like think of like your chart as like your character, like your ego, your individual. But then there's like an overall vibration, right? So the overall vibration of this 20 degrees of Cancer carries with it the resonance of approximately, in the grand scope of the 360 degrees chart, 142 to 144 degrees, which correlates to about 22 degrees to 24 degrees of Leo. Now, I'm going to go here to this inside degrees, and I'm actually going to read this to you because this is really, really interesting. Alright, so an alligator swims slowly through a swamp. Imperious self-command. The self, entirely conscious of its own territorial rights and privileges, exerts a presence of force, saturating the atmosphere with one's love, light, and intensity, brilliant and bright, deep and formidable, so very purposive that your every breath is conceived to be part of the master plan, grandiose and inflated, yet into something so essential that it is very difficult to go against. It is the ingrained aura of spiritual authority and cosmic intent, linked with the heights, seeping into the depths. You become so enduring and insistent that others back out of the picture. Graphic demonstration of being here now in your element, doing what you need to do. Sinuous, suggestive, sensuous, and somewhat prone to pushing it a bit. The inner light upheld at the cost of any and all extraneous factors. That's pretty powerful. Let's read 23 degrees of Leo. An old man cutting mistletoe off an oak tree with a golden knife. Now, I want you to look at this as a story, alright? Spectacular attainment, peak capacity, everything prepared and ready. The consummation of lifetimes in the destiny drama of self-mastery. Your tireless pursuit of perfection and gift of knowing what is asked are charged with collective power. Collective power. Marking out of a path which will remain always. The gods inspire. The hour is ripe. Demonstration is constant. The rhythm is the one the inner worlds are synchronized with. And the whole idea is to become selflessly yourself, offered to the goddess and emergent through time as the God man, boldly, uninhibitedly, all there. And let's look at 24 degrees of Leo, sunrise over Stonehenge. Immortal stature, undiminished interior presence, a throwback to heroic times and places. Character elevated, the universal code upheld. You are stalwart, uncompromising, and even rabid. Vertical understanding and allegiance, exquisite sensibility, nobility in the core of human nature embodied. You have a subtle undertone of magic and miracle, yet you're often overtly quiet, simple, and straight. All goes into the spirit, poignant and evocative and moving. So if you look at the collective, if you were to look at the collective energy, or someone who was born at the time of this eclipse, and if you look at the vibration of those particular degrees, if you were to translate them, they occur between Leo 22 degrees and Leo 24 degrees. So this is really powerful. And in fact, I would even go to say that this eclipse is going to affect any fixed signs that happen to have their degrees between 22 and 24 degrees. Which actually means that it will affect me pretty heavily because I have my Scorpio at 24 degrees. Now, I'm going to also read Pluto because I think that's also very important, which is going to be about 22 degrees to 24 degrees of Aqua. Now, let's find that. Here's Aquarius. This is where Pluto is, and Pluto represents the planet, like I said, of death, rebirth, destruction. So something is definitely going to be coming to an end, but something is also going to be rebirth. This is going to be a phoenix period for our levels of empathy with each other. So let's read this, alright? Aquarius 22, a woman making lace. Withheld from the personality spotlight. To you, intrinsic fine things matter exquisitely, and being somebody does not. Wow. A highly distinctive form of service key to a slow, steady inward sensibility. Very little connection with the here and now. Internal foundations. Needing to be humble, sober, and plain in order best to be transparent and effective. You are remarkably detached from your own reputation or outward impression. Interesting. Dreaming new worlds into being, cast loose on an infinite sea, yet being circumspect. quiet and not particularly noticeable. A super subtle edge between poverty and riches, surface and depth. Knowing your way in the dark and intent upon completing each task and carrying it through. Nothing more, nothing less. Aquarius 23. Ancient runes carved at random on gray rocks. Learning ultimate things the hard way. You have to put yourself totally in every realm to experience it for yourself, with the zeal of empirical wisdom or the wild edge of the scientific method. It's funny because I like to think of Aquarius as the mad scientist. The experimental test case is yourself, and you are out there all alone in vast uncharted territory, just the way you like it. You've been granted the chance to prove things, to follow them out quite far, bearing a determined intelligence with karmically trained faculties of subtle perception. However, objectively speaking, this is an intensively arduous or relentless way to do it, without safeguards or precedents, relying upon the moment's edge. If you can be tirelessly strong, doing it this ruggedly will prove to be the only way to go if you wish to uncover future territory without imprinting bias or distortion upon it. You just have to invent the wheel in yet another dimension. I see that as inventing the wheel of fortune in another dimension, not imprinting past biases on the future. This is something that we're having to learn how to do. That's the only way that we're really going to move forward into the next dimension. Aquarius 24 degrees. A large brown bear picking and eating apples. Gross indulgence and a conscience that just won't quit. Saturating your energy field with exaggerated gestures or a capitulation to your own lower nature. But you do this in a continual ironic juxtaposition to an observing intelligence and keen conscience which deplore and have no use of your own shenanigans. Being split between the compulsive and addictive personality and the dispassionate and easily removed consciousness. You're trying to turn yourself around by alternatively binging and reforming. But each binge triggers a reaction of the other side of mind, and each renunciation and reformation in turn triggers a further reaction. This dialectic between being bad and being good is all on the pro and con level of the dualistic mind. The only hope in this pattern lies in wearing out both ends so that a third place, i.e. the middle path, can open in which neither acting out nor becoming exemplary is all that necessary. Wow. You do what you do and you see it the way you see it. And all the self-conscious overlays and each and every self-manipulation in whatever direction dissolve when the space is clear. Wow. Alright, now I want you to just feel into those words. And maybe even pause the video and go back and read those and just feel into the vibration of those. That's kind of what's happening right here, right? It's like we are literally on the precipice, and we're kind of like, the way that we're transforming is almost by binging on these old ways of being, these old traditions. We're almost just like, it's like pushing a car that has 250, 300, 400,000 miles to its last breath, trying to literally squeeze every last drop out of this before we can move to the next level. It's a deep transformation. It's a deep humbling and a deep realization of the traditions, thoughts, emotions that we have been dealing with for lifetimes on this earth. It's really incredible. And I want you to look at this. It's interesting how the part of fortune is right on top of the ascendant. And the part of fortune I like to think of as mini Jupiter, right? Look, Pluto in Capricorn is in the collective 11th house. So this is really, this is definitely about what's coming to an end is really the way that we perceive who we are in the world and the service that we kind of overall give to others. And it's almost like we're going to come into a place of true authenticity, because no longer is it going to be about trying to be the best or trying to have the biggest castle. I think that'll only come by a result of, is it in your heart? So it's like someone can feel like $1 billion, $1 trillion and have just a little tent on the beach. Someone can have a mansion in the nicest part of town but feel miserable. So this is like us really realizing, tapping more into our intuition and tapping more into how we feel about, do we feel abundant? Do we feel like we are a spiritual infinitaire, as I would like to call it? Do we feel into our heart? The interesting thing about this new moon is that it is going to simultaneously bring out the light in people's hearts and bring out the dark in people's hearts. And it's going to be really whether up to us with this North Node, as you can see, it's in the 6th house at 5 degrees of Leo. It's really going to be up to us whether we decide to set up our life, our day-to-day reality, and the service that we provide to others. It's going to be up to us whether we express more of the light in our heart or more of the darkness in our heart. And we all have light and dark, but it's going to be up to us whether we use that light or dark for our own personal gain. It's going to be really up to us whether we're doing it for other people or we're doing it for, I guess you could say, rather spiritual reasons. And the funny thing is that, with Mars, our action energy, which is retrograde, because in the collective 12th house, means that our actions right now are purely subconscious. Like, it's even if you think you're consciously doing something or you're aware of something, it's like we're having to really dive deep and go within ourselves to really understand why we are doing things. Look where Chiron is. It's in the 1st house. So it's interesting how it's in the 1st house, at 2 degrees of Aries. And Aries represents the natural 1st house. So we literally actually are going through a death and rebirth of who we are. And we're having to accept who we are. We're having to accept the light and dark. We're having to, I'm sorry, hold on, just my phone, which was recording, actually stopped. But the good thing is I'm still recording on, I'm still recording on the computer. So, are you ready to step really into your heart? Because that's actually going to be the portal to the new world. Now, I do want to take a look at the full moon that we had, because this is kind of a continuation off of that energy, In many ways, it's kind of the conclusion of this energy, this full moon. And then, of course, I will jump ahead as well. But look, the moon is actually in the 11th house this time, right? Opposing the sun, which is actually still in the 5th house in Capricorn, 11 degrees, conjuncting the vertex and conjuncting Venus. And look, this time, Regulus, one of the royal stars, is actually on top of the collective ascendant at 29 degrees. I think there's no coincidence here that what we're doing is really, we're all establishing our own legend, our own world, our own kingdom, our own queendom, our own legend. And that's really what I'm seeing. Is we're establishing our own legend. And I even had this interesting channel back, is that we all have our own world. And I feel like the world that we are living in right now is someone's world, and we're all kind of just visiting it, because we all have a different reflection within that person's world. But each and every one of us has a world that we kind of rule over, a domain that we rule over. And I think what this is that we are actually are becoming more aware of that, because I think what happens is that we forgot about it, and we have been coming back to this person's world, to this person's dream. And we are going to be moving into a new reality. It's going to be quite the powerful shift. This is, like I said, this is what was occurring earlier. And look at this. This is January 1st, 2018. So right at the beginning of the year, we had this full moon. Now let's jump ahead. Nice, it's gonna show all that stuff. Let's jump ahead to the new moon solar eclipse that will be happening in July, on July 2nd of 2019. So the new moon that we have, you could say that the energy is kind of reset, and then this will become the new theme, right? So it's going to take 6 months, of course, until the next full moon in Cancer, when the sun enters back into Capricorn in 6 months approximately, and then another 6 months after that, we will get the next new moon. But I want you to look at it how it's at 10 degrees, where before it's at 20 degrees, now it's at 10 degrees. And it's in the 9th house, which has to do with our belief structure, Interesting enough, we can see that the North Node is also here too. The North Node will be in Cancer at this point. And look at this, the South Node will be conjunct Saturn in the 3rd house. So and they're both, the nodes are always going backwards, but Saturn will be retrograde at this point. And it's within a 5-degree orb of Pluto at 22 degrees. And look at this, the part of fortune is here again, back on the ascendant again, back on the collective ascendant. Say someone was born at the apex of the eclipse, which will happen. They will have their part of fortune at 28 degrees of Libra, right on top of their ascendant, which means that there's going to be great fortune that can be had. I mean, like I said, the part of fortune is kind of like a mini Jupiter. When we actually learn how to harmonize and have peace with each other. But we have to be aware of what's within our mind, what we are telling ourselves about how the world looks, about tradition, about order. And then it's going to challenge our beliefs. But the North Node is here, so we're actually being challenged to actually believe that we really can create a world that is conducive for everyone's abundance. But the challenge is whether or not we can break out of the current norms of society and the current traditions that don't support this dream and this vision. And the collective dream and vision, if you really think about it, if the part of fortune is mini Jupiter, and in many ways Jupiter represents vision, which Jupiter at this point will be actually at 16 degrees of Sagittarius, which is kind of funny because that's actually where my Mercury is. It's going to be on Libra, so that means that in many ways our vision is kind of leaning towards peace, harmony, integration. I'm not going to say balance, I'm going to say integration. But are we going to get caught up in this 3rd house of what our mind says about how things are supposed to be? Or what society is going to say that things are supposed to be? Are we going to get caught up in that? So this new moon, let's just go back to, so this new moon solar eclipse is going to be a rather powerful opportunity for us to really step into our heart, to transform our life, to really have more compassion for ourselves, to have more empathy for ourselves, to embrace who we are, but also to step into our intuition and realize that even though sometimes we feel disconnected from people, and maybe even disconnected from spirit, that actually, because this disconnect, you can see the South Node here is technically in the collective 12th house at the time of this new moon solar eclipse. So there may be this awkward disconnect from spirit that we feel, but maybe that's just because we feel disconnected from each other. It's this Mars retrograde. We're having to re-examine our actions, how we act towards each other, in a spiritual sense. And I see all of life as a spiritual journey. I don't think spirituality is separate from life. I think the entirety of it is spiritual. But what we're going to be doing is that we are being called to really have the courage, confidence, and conviction to step into our heart and to really explore and embrace our passions and express our true authenticity. It's going to be a very sensitive eclipse. It's going to be an eclipse where really you want to meditate, protect yourself, write down affirmations, speak them out into being, do some type of ritual will really help you to augment this energy. And you can do this any period, 24 hours before and after the eclipse. And the eclipse, like I said, happens at about 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you can calculate that based off of where you are. But as I've said, this eclipse, which at the same time, there's a trine, an earth trine happening between Saturn, Uranus, and Virgo. And like I said, a loose water trine happening between the moon and the sun, Jupiter, and Neptune, which technically creates a loose Star of David, the six-pointed star, which means that this really is a opportunity for us to step into an incredible manifestation that's actually in line with how we truly feel things are going. And really that's tapped into our intuition. So I know that this video was pretty technical, and I hope that you understood it, especially with the way that I broke it down as far as like I said, this is happening at 20 degrees of Cancer. And I'm going to just go ahead and read it for you all too. Might as well go ahead and read the actual degrees of 20 degrees of Cancer so you know where this moon, where the new moon solar eclipse is happening at. Let's go ahead and just read that real fast, because I think it's also obviously applicable. Many brightly colored tropical fish, okay? When you are inside of the life flow, the vividness of impressions and the vibrancy of responses wax so strong and powerful that you must live it out in the unconscious, leaving the conscious levels high and dry. You remember when I said that all of your actions right now are coming from the subconscious? Because Mars is in the collective 12th house. The immense fertility of imaginative depth stays inside and avoids superflooding by setting off a private preserve of consciousness within which to maintain personal priorities. Inside, the deep and vital fluids are quickened and marvelously differentiated and vast. The rigid division between the overt and the covert is felt to be simply a given. The consequences are severe. All livingness is excluded by consciousness, and all consciousness is excluded by livingness. The stance is static and repetitive and represents a final echo of a long-standing duality, which must yield to a whole new way of being in this world when every other option is used up. This is the end of duality. This is us stepping into the middle path. This is us learning the integration of the yin and yang, but this is the beginning of it. This is us really beginning to step into that place. This is us stepping into the trine, the triangle, the pyramid, where we finally connect these two lines and we create this base where we can expand from that spot. Let's read 20 degrees of Capricorn, and then I'm going to actually draw cards for each of the signs. Okay. Many different perfumes carried by a breeze. We bear within us many past lives, each one complete, autonomous, emitting its own subtle, special fragrance. There are points along the journey where we must stand together with the whole lineup of our previous selves and follow out the journey they were all leading to. Interesting enough, this is reminding me of Avatar: The Last Airbender, where Aang is looking at all of his past avatars, and in many ways, if you really think of yourself as an avatar, this is kind of what you're doing. And how each of the avatar has their own abilities, their own element that they're kind of predisposed to, and they're pretty much a hero. So you are an avatar. There is a lot to live up to. This is a formidable task. There is a lot to live up to. It grants you authority and conviction and makes it very hard to get started. In order to get anywhere, you must at times deny the awareness that everybody is there and do whatever you can do, apparently on your own. But truly, the depth of experience, the substantive inward development, and the power of your inner drive give it away. You are destiny charged in a larger-than-life fashion. Being self-possessed in your watchword, there is so much to accomplish, And at the center of the journey lies self-knowledge and the overriding determination to clear the karmic slate, to free up what has been trapped and bound, and to come to yourself afresh. This destiny will is guided, cosmically supported, centrally relevant to your whole world, and you will do it. Turn the darkest of hours into the brightest breakthroughs by refusing to stop anywhere or to back down from your resolve to wake up this time and begin on the greater path at long last. That's where Pluto is at. It's at 20 degrees of Capricorn, right? You are transforming forever. And you transform every day, but this is a huge pivot point where we are clearing the karmic slate. We are moving into the future. We're moving into the abundant now. I don't know really what else to say besides drawing cards for each of the signs, because it's like it's really quite incredible. It really is. So I'm going to be drawing from my Shadowscapes deck, and then I'm going to draw a healing card, and these cards just kind of popped out. So I'm going to draw a healing card and then a Sacred Traveler Oracle card as well. Okay. So I'm just go ahead and what I'm going to do is just shuffle the deck and then just draw cards until I feel I have all the cards for each of the signs. That's 6, right? Okay. 7, 8. The reason why I'm doing it like this, 9, 10, 11, is because, like I said, your actions are rather subconscious. So I'm just really going to go with the flow of this and really see what happens. I'm going to count to make sure I have the right number of cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Alright, so we are going to start with Cancer. Cancer, the card that we have for you is the King of Pentacles. So this is really about you knowing your self-worth and your self-value and having the determination and the confidence to really manifest what you really want that's actually in line with your emotions, where you don't deny your emotions, you don't deny your intuition, but at the same time, you feel grounded in this new reality, you feel grounded in this new emotional foundation, and from here, you're going to really just manifest all kinds of amazing, beautiful things. Leo, we actually have the High Priestess. This is funny because this is happening in your 12th house, so this is really about you tapping into spirit and really trusting your intuition that you're moving in the direction, or if you feel like you might be moving in the right direction, that you'll make a change for the better that's actually in line with, like I said, alchemy and you learning to integrate your dark and your light. The High Priestess sits between the two realms, and it acts as a portal. So you really represent the step, or like the platform that we all land on after we go through this portal, because you come after Cancer. So it's almost like you are in that place. The portal is like your past, and like the next step after you make it through the portal is your future. So it's you're kind of in like that, you're kind of like a step ahead of everyone else. So it's actually, and the North Node is in your sign, so you actually are a step ahead of everyone else. This is actually going to allow you to really tap into your intuition, where you are going to be just a shining beacon of light for how to really move forward this energy. Virgo, we have the Three of Cups. This is amazing. This actually is going to bring about a emotional celebration. For now, you don't necessarily have to worry. You're still going to be detail-oriented, Virgo, I think, with this new moon, but this is happening in your 11th house. So it's almost like you're going to find a reason to celebrate with other people, that you finally can feel like things are going to be in order, that things are actually moving forward, that you can kind of feel grounded in this new emotional security. And you may even create friendships, like I said, over the next 6 months. You may even meet your tribe, where they really make you feel, valuable, valid. It's really going to be self-confirming, and you're going to find your tribe. Virgo with this energy. Libra, we have the Ace of Cups. This signals to you deciding to love yourself. And it's by loving yourself that you actually are going to bring more peace and harmony to the world. Scorpio. Scorpio, we have the Chariot, which is actually the card of Cancer. You have been working hard. You have been putting in a lot of work, effort, tears, blood, sweat, and now you are going to arrive. Your will is so strong, and you are definitely very much so connected with your higher self. You're going to arrive at this new world in such a powerful fashion, and people are really going to be looking at you for inspiration and motivation. Just don't give up. Keep moving forward and realize that you are really shifting into a powerful new now. Sagittarius. Sagittarius, we actually have the Six of Cups, which is signaling definitely to potential relationships and connections with soulmates. But this also is going to be kind of a blast from the past. So you're going to kind of be, there's going to be I see this, I'm feeling like there's going to be it's going to be you kind of going back to your childhood and embracing a dream that you had from your childhood. And you thought that this dream was dead, but the fact of the matter is that you actually are going to resurrect this dream. And you're going to realize that you almost had to have the perception of it being dead because you had to mature a certain amount. But now that you have matured to a certain amount, you can go back to this childhood dream of yours and really implement it. And it's actually going to manifest, and it's going to make you feel like a kid again. Capricorn. Capricorn, we have justice. Justice is being served. You know, Pluto is in your first house, opposing this in your seventh, opposing this new moon solar eclipse in your seventh house. So justice is actually being served. Everything is in working divine order. You are shifting powerfully. Who you are is shifting powerfully. Your personality, your ego, the way that you act, your awareness. It's transforming forever. So people might not necessarily understand why you are doing the things that you're doing, but justice will be served, and the right people will come into your life that are meant to be there. Aquarius. Aquarius, we have the Fool card. Go with the flow. Stay on the edge. Embrace the edge even. And just know that you are being guided. You know that you are being guided. This is a time where you definitely want to appreciate all that life has to offer and appreciate your uniqueness, your journey, your heroism, Embrace it, Aquarius, because this is the age of Aquarius, so you are here to really integrate these really divine truths. But in order for you to really integrate these and, provide them for the world, you have to go on this journey of a lifetime. So what's happening with this new moon solar eclipse is that the journey of a lifetime is really opening up, and it's asking you, even you, to go outside your comfort zone. Do it. You will achieve greatness. Pisces. Pisces, we have the Hierophant. This is asking you to step into your own sense of spirituality. And if you, this is about not necessarily seeking, this is about you stepping into your heart, really, because this is happening in your fifth house, this new moon. So this is about you stepping into your heart. And whatever your heart says, follow it. The Hierophant speaks to, in many ways, spirituality and religion and kind of an organized sense of religion. But really, it's like if you're feeling amiss, if you're feeling a little detached from a certain spiritual practice that you have been doing, it's time to switch it up, and it's time to listen to your heart, because that's really what's going to guide you and bring you to the next level of your evolution. Aries. Aries, we have the Star card. Follow the stars. Tie your handlebars to the stars so you stay on track. Stay on. And if your attention's stray, you'll wrench them away. and you'll take your leave, and you'll never look back. Just thinking of The Cave by Owl City. So yeah, you are being guided heavily by the stars and by your angels right now. So if you're feeling like you want to take certain actions but you're a little worried about it, consult your angels, consult your guides, but know that whatever decision you make, whatever action you take over the next 6 months is destined, and you actually are being guided by your angels. Taurus, we have the King of Cups. This is really asking you to actually have compassion for yourself and others, and also to even have compassion for whatever you're trying to manifest. Sometimes things take time to manifest. And Taurus, you're no stranger to this because you actually like taking your time. You don't really mind taking your time for things to really come to fruition. But maybe you've been feeling a little impatient, and that's honestly Uranus in your sign, because it's kind of revving up things. It's kind of throwing you just slightly off a bit, but it's also allowing you to kind of tap into your quantum roots. But what you want to do is that you want to bring this King of Cups energy down to those quantum roots and water those quantum roots and have compassion, so that you will see that everything is working in divine timing and order, and that whatever you are trying to manifest right now will manifest. It just takes time. But have compassion for yourself and have compassion for whatever it is, because just trust in the divine and things will work out in your favor. And Gemini. Gemini, we have the Ten of Swords. This means that an old thought pattern is coming to an abrupt end, because this thought pattern just does not work anymore. It does not work anymore. Trying to impress other people does not work anymore. Trying to do things, like I said, to impress other people, or because that's what you think they want from you, it doesn't work anymore. What works for you? What is in your heart? It is time to let go of these outer expectations and to come within, because that is where the truth lies. I'm going to cut the deck. Over our card, we actually have the Ten of Pentacles. Abundance can be here for all and can be achieved for all. That's all I really have to say about that. Let's draw a color card and a Sacred Oracle travel card, and then we'll come out of this video. Card for everyone is Peach. Inhale a breath of life. Let's do it. What if all of the chaos that we see and feel in the world, the worries, the doubts, the anxieties, what if the opposite was also true? What if things are actually really quite peachy, as they would say? What if things are far better than we realize? It just requires an altering of our perception, right? And that's the color healing card, is Peach. The actual Sacred Travel Oracle card is In the Flow. Everything is smooth sailing. So don't fret, don't worry. This new moon solar eclipse is definitely going to be emotional. It's definitely going to be deep. It's definitely going to tug on your soul strings. It's going to tug on your heartstrings. You're going to really, some people might freak out during this new moon solar eclipse, and this is natural. These things happen. But if you happen to be watching this, take time to inhale a breath of life. Realize that everything is moving in divine order. Everything is smooth sailing, and that you are okay. What's happening is that you are becoming more psychic. You're not crazy. You're not weird. You are weird, but it's okay. Embrace your weirdness. Embrace your weirdness. And I'm doing this on purpose, okay? Like, You might not necessarily get this, but maybe in 100 years, someone watching this will understand why I'm doing this, why I'm flashing the piece or the two up. Inhale the breath of life. Everything's working in divine order. You are okay. You are waking up. Your psychic faculties are coming alive. They're coming online. You're becoming more aware of the collective drama, the collective energy, the collective wound. And we actually can heal this. You know, I like to think that cancer can also be pronounced can cure. And I mainly say that because I think it's terrible that we have named a disease that ravages our population, our human population, after the sign that is meant to be a sign of healing. So, you can cure. You can cure your life. And also, I like to say that while hurt people, heal people, heal people. We are all being healed greatly with this new moon solar eclipse. And it's not necessarily designed to taste good or feel good, but we all are being healed. Whether you accept the healing or at least become aware of it, because we're talking to all of us, but whether you become aware of it is going to determine whether you'll be able to have the capacity to heal others. Not disregarding who you are, your path, and your authenticity. Not draining yourself because your cup will truly be overflowing. That is it for your reading. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe, and tap the bell for all the notifications that I put out on this channel. I would really appreciate it. And if you would like a personal reading with me, we could take a look at your natal chart. I do lunar reports, I do tarot reports. Follow the link in the description below to theaquarianadepts.com. And always remember, my beautiful brothers and sisters, to keep moving forward, to stay focused and Yahoo! Smile often.